So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another custom scenario made by another new map maker, I think. I don't think he's made any maps before anyway, because this is one by Escal Nordia, and there is another one that has been made by Froggy that I'm going to do after this, so it's good to see a lot more people making maps. It will help to keep the game fresh going through the patches. And yeah, this looks like a pretty promising one, to be honest with you. There is like a castle, which I believe is the exact same layout as the standard castle for in Medieval 2, and it's got sort of an outer settlement over here, and the orcs will be moving in from multiple directions to try and take this settlement. So yeah, we'll start off with the defenders, and we'll go through the layout of the defences as we go. So this is of course a standard Medieval 2 castle, so most of you will know what this is, of course, and we have Escal Nordia himself playing as Gondor, of course, the defender, so he's got a unit of Lasarnak nobles here. He's also got a unit of the Sons of Argonath here, and several units of Gondor infantry. This is going to make up the backbone of most Gondorian forces, in addition to Gondorian spearmen going down here, which I believe make up the rest of his army, indeed. And then we also have some more elite units in the shape of the veterans of Osgiliath. They have their armour, of course. These guys, very, very effective. They double as heavy infantry as well as being decent archers at range. They don't have quite the same punch as some of the other elite archers, but they are still very good. Gondor Citadel archers as well, a decent archer unit as well. We've got the Gondor archers, more Gondorian archers, and then back here we've got a unit of the Fountain Guard, some guards of Osgiliath, more archers, and then some Citadel bodyguard. And he's got a pretty large army, to be fair. He's got 2 units of the Shielded Fountain Guard as well as another unit of Citadel Guard. He's got some lower tier units as well, so we've got some Lasarnak Axemen, some standard variants. These guys will go down pretty easily. And of course the benefit of this map is, I don't think, well, I suppose you could if you were the enemies go right around the back, but normally in a castle you have to defend this area as well that kind of bulges out. But this time they will not have to do that. And now we shall move on to his ally. I think I will actually just turn the brightness down just a little bit, because it is rather bright. It does tend to glare off the armour of Dol Amroth and Gondor in particular. And Dol Amroth is of course Escal Nordia's ally, and he will be played by they will be played by Brainy Smurf, and he has got some Knights of the Silver Swan, if I can get my words out. And they, of course, will be defending the sort of outer settlement, so they will need this cavalry if they're going to be successful against the legions of orcs being thrown their way. And yeah, the White Knights, of course, very strong, going to be able to withstand a lot of punishment, even more so than the Knights of the Silver Swan and the regular Swan Knights. Although these are actually regular Swan Knights. They've got the armor upgrade. It's very confusing. They're Knights of the Silver Swan. These guys are Swan Knights. So those guys over there are actually better than these guys, despite the fact that they look the same, because the upgrade model for the Swan Knights is the Knights of the Silver Swan and the Talon Knights. Meanwhile, down here we've got some Edhalond Halberdiers, and they're going to be mixed in with the Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms. Very effective combination there. Going to be very difficult to get through. The mix of good survivability of the Men-at-Arms and the killing power of the Halberdiers in the current patch is very, very strong. Very difficult to beat. We've also got the Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms, and in fact they've got their sort of upgraded armour model here, which is cool. Usually they won't have the upgraded armour in matches where you simply pick your armies because you want to have more units. You also have some Haven Guard, of course, the best of the Dol Amroth infantry, and the Coastal Wardens. You can see that there's a series of streets around here that Dol Amroth can use for cover against the superior numbers of the orcs, which is going to be important for them. And they will be able to get their cavalry in and around the flanks as well. We've got some Talon Knights, some Tirithea Marksmen, some more Halberdiers, as well as some archers. Have these guys got the upgraded armour? They do. Neat. And we've also got some pikemen as well, so that's going to be a very good screening force. Then over here we have the Dol Amroth archers right on the periphery of the settlement itself. And actually there is a cliff over here, so the orcs will be funneled to go either side of this area, which is pretty neat. So yeah, now we'll move on to the attacking armies. So commanding the first army of orcs we have Froggy, who, as I said, made the next map that I will be showing, but for the time being he will simply be one of the attackers, and he has got several units of Goblin Band at the front. Of course these guys will be massacred by pretty much every unit that the defenders have. They will be pushing up the siege towers and the rams, although I would recommend that these guys actually hold fire on that, because obviously they need to get through the outer settlements and Dol Amroth before they get to the fortress that Gondor occupy. I'm not sure of the rules on this one. I'm not sure if Gondor can come out to assist their allies, or if they have to wait. He's got some Orc Fellas pushing that one as well, and some more Orc Fellas. These guys surprisingly can be very cost effective a lot of the time, provided they aren't engaged, well, provided they aren't shot and get into melee. They could be very cost effective against both Dol Amroth and Gondor with all their armour. Moving back though, he does have some elite units. He's got some Guardians of Khan Doom. These guys are brutally efficient most of the time. He's also got some Snagar archers, so some nice cheap skirmish fire there. He's got some Witch Round Blackguard. I like the formation that he's struck up. It's quite organised, it's quite neat, it's nice. These Witch-Round Blackguard in the middle, of course, these guys are the main stopping power unit of Dol Amroth, of Gundabad. These guys will 1-to-1, I think, beat anything that they have except for the Haven Guard and maybe the Sons of Argonath. We have the Guardians of Karndoom again, and then back here he's got a full complement of Black Uruk Warbands. So this is going to make up the bulk of his main force, because the first wave of Goblin Band will just get massacred. These guys will stay in the fight a little bit longer. He's got 2 units of Black Uruks, and then at the back he's got a unit of Trolls for that extra bit of punch and mass. The ally just to his left is Tundra's Fox playing as Mordor, and Mordor, you know, very similar in many ways to Gundabad in this sort of situation. They will swarm. He's got some Olag High, so better than the Trolls of Gundabad. He's also got some Shield Guard, so they offer a little bit more rigidity in terms of their spear line, but for the most part, Gundabad's infantry is far superior. But we have some Uruk Halberds over here. The Halberds will come in very handy if they can get into melee without being shredded too bad by the defender's skirmish force. He's of course got some Orc fodder as well with those stakes at the front. They start off in the trees, so I'm not sure how many of these guys will actually be hidden. So we've got some Orc fodder as well. Pulling the ladders, we have the Moran-on Uruks, lots of Moran-on Uruks, the Uruk bodyguard as well. And in here we've got more Moran-on Uruks. These guys are going to be pretty decent, honestly. You know, they will be able to hold the line, but most of the stopping power it has to say will probably come from the 2 Gundabad armies. And if we move a little bit further down, we do have a couple more units hidden over here. We've got a unit of Orc Archers and a unit of Orc Raiders. I think my voice is giving up already, that's a bad sign. Well, excuse me. We have Goddess Nimhain, who is going to be playing as Gundabad. He made the last map, of course. He's got 2 units of Warg Riders and a unit of Bolg's Champions. These guys going to be pretty key in shutting down that Dol Amroth cavalry, because they don't have a lot of other options to do so. Then over here he has his main force. He's got some Black Uruk Warband here at the front. 4 units of Black Uruk Warband, 2 units of Goblin Trackers, which, you know, goes to show how bad Gundabad's main skirmish line is when these are the best archer that they can mass. And also we have the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, some Hammer Guard, also some Pikes, a Catapult, some Scourge Raiders as well. These guys are going to be very effective. 2 units of the Shadow Guard, usually you can only have 1, so seeing 2 of them at the same time is pretty cool. And then he too has the 2 Guardians of Karndoom and Witch Realm Blackguard combo. So now I will make a little cut and we shall wait until the battle is joined. So there has been a bit of a skirmish going on, although it is more poking and prodding from both of the archers, and you can see that there are some Orc fodder sort of forming up on the horizon there, getting ready, I presume, to advance into these Edelond Halberdiers, or Ethelond Halberdiers as I'm told they're pronounced. So it's another one of those. And you can actually see over here that as a result of pulling his cavalry back to avoid the wargs, you can see that these Bolg's Champions from Goddess Nimhain are going to be able to just charge into these Dol Amroth men-at-arms, and they're completely unprotected. Now the archers will reap a bit of a price on these wargs, because they're not exactly the best at taking archer fire. But as you can see, these Dol Amroth men-at-arms, they took a hefty amount of damage off that charge. That is a lot of men to lose for basically no reason, and that's because of his cavalry being pulled back. In a 1-to-1, if you get the charge off on the wargs, your cavalry will beat the wargs, as it is currently. So pulling your cavalry way away is a bit of a mistake, to be honest with you, and he's got them all the way over there. And as you can see, what Dol Amroth has done is they've essentially formed a box, so they've managed to sort of box off their streets and sort of cover every angle more or less. But as you can also see, they've found a weak point in this sort of formation really, because standard Dol Amroth men-at-arms are tough, and they will do a decent job against a lot of lower tier infantry. They've already taken a lot of casualties very, very quickly. Having said that, we do have Tundra's Fox moving in with some fodder and with some raiders. The Dol Amroth men-at-arms will win this fight, of course, but just the fact that they're being pressurised and just the fact that they're going to take more casualties early on is going to be bad for the Dol Amroth defence over here. And indeed, Rainy Smurf recognises the danger, because he is sending over a unit of Dol Amroth pikemen to plug the gap, as it were, make this area a little bit more secure. Having said that, we also have this area over here. You can sort of scoot along this ledge over here, which Tundra's Fox is now doing with his Orc Raiders. And you can see that the only thing he has over here is Dol Amroth archers, so he is going to need another unit of melee infantry to sort of hold this line. He has got Talon Knights in reserve and Haven Guard, so it won't be a problem, but just the fact that this is what you have to do as the attackers. If you see a very strong defensive position, attack them from multiple angles, and eventually your numbers will tell. And you can see that the skirmish fight, these Ethelond Halberdiers, or Ethelond, it's going to take me a while to get used to that, just as it did with Galathrim. They're taking a lot of fire. Not a lot of them have died yet, because Snaga archers don't have a lot of damage, and these guys are well armoured. Having said that, they are going to still take damage. And as soon as they've taken a decent amount of casualties, you know that this fodder is going to charge in. Meanwhile, this is the only place at the moment where we can see a genuine melee scrap at the moment, and these Dol Amroth man-at-arms victory seems certain against all of these low tier orcs. You can see in the background though, just over here, Moran-on Uruks are coming forward. And with how much casualties the Dol Amroth man-at-arms have already taken, Moran-on Uruks should be enough to beat these guys even with their upgraded armour. The Orc Raiders and the Orc Pod are definitely not providing what they need. And unfortunately the pikemen are not really advancing with the man-at-arms here. The man-at-arms, when they're in shield wall, will push back. The pikemen, however, are not really doing that at the moment. So you can see over here that the archers are nearly getting caught by those Orc Raiders. Now the Talon Knights are having to be committed, and you can see that Dol Amroth in a little bit of peril here. They do need to sort of start using their cavalry a little bit more aggressively, I feel. Otherwise they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They're trying to box themselves up, but attrition warfare is not something you're going to win against two full stacks of orcs. See, these Talon Knights are getting into the melee. Some of them are charging forward deeper into the unit of Orc Raiders. But it's the Moran-on Uruks that will start to actually do some damage if they can get in and around these Talon Knights. Do a bit of attrition damage. They won't win, of course, but they will still do a decent job if they can surround the Talon Knights. Meanwhile, Froggy is sending forward his Snaga archers that are out of ammunition. I think they used up all of their ammo and didn't get a single kill on those halberdiers, so it goes to show how terrible their archer ammunition actually is. But they will still at least provide a nice buffer for something else to advance, and it does look like that's what's going to happen. Some Black Uruk Warband are going to move forward. And our halberdiers are actually getting into a tighter formation here, so you could try and sort of scoot around the outside of them. It's a possibility. And you can see that over here there is also another front that has been opened up. Again, Froggy has led the way with his archers that are out of ammunition. Going into halberdiers, they will of course lose. They do need to be backed up pretty quickly, otherwise it will be a total waste. But these Orc fellas, provided they don't get munched up by the formation that the halberdiers have managed to impose, they will do some decent AP damage, and the Black Uruk Warband providing some numbers to that as well. Although some halberdiers over here have died. Over here you can see two units of men-at-arms. It looks like finally the Dol Amroth cavalry is springing into action. The Swan Knights and the Knights of the Silver Swan with their lances. Though I don't really know what they're doing. Again, they are eager to avoid the wargs, I think, and for good reason. The wargs will mean that they won't be very effective. But even so, we can see that from the settlement, Gondor, using their archer ammunition to shoot into the backs of this fight over here to support his ally. With all of these blobs, the frame rate is starting to chug a little bit. We shall see how it holds up throughout the battle. But yeah, this is a fight that they won't win. The halberdiers are very, very strong. You can see that over here, the Moran-on Uruks are in the melee, and victory does seem certain for them now, although the Dol Amroth men-at-arms have fallen back to the pike formation, which is good. The pikes will provide a little bit of extra reach and killing power, and it should make it much more difficult for these Moran-on Uruks to get through. You can see here that the continuing advance, this advance over here is going pretty poorly for the attackers, of course, because Talon Knights are in here, as well as the halberdiers. That's something you're not going to be able to get through a Black Uruk Warband with all the best will in the world. The Númenórean Shield Guard are coming forward, and that won't really make much of a difference either. They are spearmen after all. They will add some hit points, but other than that, not too much. Then over here you can see the grossly incandescent Talon Knights being accosted, and they have managed to cover the whole street, so they won't be surrounded by these Moran-on Uruks anymore, which means they will very easily clean them up. Moran-on Uruks are decent mid-tier infantry, but you know, against a high tier like the Talon Knights, they really don't stand much of a chance at all. We shall see what's the percentage looking like, and the percentage of allies killed considerably higher, as you would expect. And here we have a cavalry engagement. The trolls and the wargs advancing as one. There are a lot more dead wargs though, and that's because they are in range of the Gondorian archers, and wargs do very poorly under archer fire, which might be why they're trying to sort of lure the wargs over here, which is an interesting thing. But eventually you're going to need to use your cavalry to start really charging. If you're being aggressive with your cavalry here, you could really start breaking these armies out here, and it could be a bit of a foregone conclusion at that point. But here we can see these halberdiers holding up very easily the Black Uruk Warband. The Orc fellas as well were not able to get into close quarters melee to start dishing out that AP damage. Meanwhile, over here, Mordor's starting to push through this formation of pikes and men-at-arms by using a unit of Númenórean Shield Guard, also sending up more fodder and sending up more Moran-on Uruks. So Tundra's Fox being very aggressive, pushing through. And this is going to be bad news for Dol Amroth. Their defensive position is is their biggest advantage at this point. They can't afford to surrender it, and indeed a unit of Dol Amroth men-at-arms is going to shut the door on them here. It is Númenórean shield guard, so the men-at-arms will not be able to kill them off too quickly, so this defensive position might already be gone, and this is the danger of using pikemen, lower tier pikemen anyway, as their position can be buckled a little bit more easily, so you do need to back them up, and that unit of men-at-arms that was with them had already received that charge from the Bolg's champions, and unfortunately for them, their mass was not high enough to protect those pikes. You can see these Númenórean shield guard doing a lot of heavy lifting right now in the Moran on Uruks, following them in, providing that nice mass that the orcs are going to need. You can see that firing into the side of these halberdiers, we do have some archers. They are only orc archers though, so it's not a huge amount of damage they're going to be doing. You can see the coastal wardens are moving forward. Where are they going, I wonder? Yes, they're going down here. Dol Amroth's position is still relatively secure though. They do still have a lot of units, they have a lot of archers. Although the archer angles that they're really finding at the moment, not too great because they have to shoot over their own buildings. Even so, the rear is still protected. You can see that more orcs are being committed over here. Black Uruk warband from Froggy. And he's going to try and go around. And indeed, the Haven Guard were moved from this position over here. Where are the Haven Guard? The Haven Guard have been committed over to the fight over there, which does mean that there is a free street available for these Black Uruk warband to come around and presumably surround the Talon Knights. The Talon Knights would probably still win that, but they would take casualties from that. Filtering into this settlement, this is bad news, and you can see that up in the top corner, the Green Army, Goddess Nimhane's army, has started to move, which means that Gondor will likely start to be pressured in their settlement as well. Or they could try and just crush Dol Amroth, which would probably be the wiser move. We just get a quick look at what's going on before that flank happens. You can see that this force over here, the Banter forces, is evenly matched, so the Orc Archer support is actually really helping against the Halberdiers. They're the only ones really getting much in the way of kills. We also have over here in the middle, Mordor have sort of been forced back once again by a combination of the Haven Guard and the men-at-arms, so they have been sort of forced back out. But at what cost, I wonder, because the Haven Guard were acting as the blockers over here at this intersection, and now the Black Uruk warband are marauding through the streets. Black Uruk warband, in fact, this building is actually see-through, it seems. It's hollow. What are they going to be doing now, I wonder? I mean, these Talon Knights are still hacking their way through these Moran on Uruks, but it does actually look like the Black Uruk warband instead is going for a much more juicy target. The archers, these Black Uruk warband, I'm not sure if Dol Amroth have the infantry units to spare to actually save their archers at this point. You can see that both units picking their targets. They should definitely get into these coastal wardens because they're quite weak, and those javelins will be very useful later on in the battle. Victory is a distinct possibility, but they are just, again, cracking those defensive positions, and you can see that these men-at-arms are turning around. I mean, they're forced to, so they're forced to leave these coastal wardens basically on their own, and at this point, if they do still have wargs available to them, they could charge through them with ease. Although these Swan Knights are still hovering, but even so, decisive actions as the attackers is what's needed, and actually these Talon Knights are falling back, which means these Orc Raiders and Moran on Uruks are going to be able to force their way through as well. But these Black Uruk warband do find themselves surrounded, but they have caused panic in the Dol Amroth ranks, and this does mean that elsewhere their defences will likely be much more thin. As you see over here, that these Halberdiers are managing to hold pretty easily. They have taken some casualties though on the side with the archers. And actually it's the coastal warden fire that's going into the Black Uruk warband which is doing them in. What have they got left, I wonder? You can actually see that the towers are going right around, so they're getting ready for an assault on Gondor. And the percentages? 23% behind the attackers, but honestly, as I've seen multiple times before in this sort of situation when the defenders are outnumbered by an army, late on the attackers will really start to pull it back. You actually see that this see-through building means the charges of the cavalry. So over here, unfortunately, while the attackers were able to get in there, they weren't able to really make it stick. And at this point, the advantage they have is gone. So now they're just going to have to presumably try and smash through from the front. We go back over to here. The frame rate is really not liking it. It has been worse. You can see that these Dol Amroth pikemen and men-at-arms are still alive, but there aren't very many of them left now. And they are having to still fight Moran on Uruks. There's still some fodder units in there as well, but there are also Orc Halberdiers, which are exactly the sort of thing which will be very well. Uruk Halberdiers will be exactly the sort of thing that will help pull down these mid-tier Dol Amroth units in particular. If we look over here, this fight is still going on, so another choke point battle. These Edhelond Halberdiers and the Talon Knights still holding firm. There's not really a lot that these two armies over here had outside of the Witch Realm Blackguard that could get through an area like this. These Haven Guard are still fully healthy. But yeah, the attacks on the front of this outer settlement here have so far not yielded a great deal. The attackers have had the right ideas, they've sort of tried to go in and around, but they haven't done so in the numbers required to really make it stick. And this means they have suffered some losses in terms of units that maybe could have been avoided. We shall see. We shall see if it turns out to be key in the late game. Because Dol Amroth is still holding firm. See a unit of Uruk Halberds coming over there. That will help over here, but the presence of the Talon Knights means they probably won't be able to break through. There's some Morgul Chosen back there. They do have HP, but they're spears, of course, so they're not exactly attack focused. But over here you can see that this outer formation over here finally going to start giving up. But behind them we see the Haven Guard. Haven Guard ready to receive another wave of men. And the Orc Archers that are out of ammunition are being committed to melee over here. And I'm wondering if maybe the attackers are backing off over here and going for... Oh, there's some Temple Inquisitors that I missed in the army compositions. They could be very key. The Temple Inquisitors, of course, can beat the Haven Guard 1-to-1. Oh, excuse me. I might be getting a cold. But yes, now, for the time being, let us move over to here. You can see that Froggy's Goblin Band companies are moving up with their siege towers, and they're going to start opening up avenues of attack onto Gondor, and that is going to be important because Gondor, of course, are basically untouched at this point in the battle. They have their settlement, they have their walls. It's going to be difficult for them to break through. But as we can see, we do have a few of Froggy's units over here. Meanwhile, you can actually see that Goddess Nimhain is actually moving his forces more centrally, so maybe they do intend to squash Dol Amroth underfoot, but they still have their cavalry, which is going to be a real problem. The Wargs are still alive, however. So it's a bit of a game of cat and mouse in terms of the mounted combat that this game will offer. These Haven Guard. I don't like the way these big battles always have like a bit of tearing whenever I try and move the camera. It always makes it look worse than it should. Meanwhile, we have over here, still holding the line firm. The Halberdiers of Dol Amroth are so strong in the current patch again. That pike animation they use is so lethal. You can actually see that another unit is being committed around this flank over here. But again, it's going to be too late to help these Uruk Halberdiers. They really should have committed as units. Well, not as units, as groups of units rather than individual units. Because as you can see, sending individual units into units like Talon Knights and Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms is getting them chewed up. And they're not trading very efficiently with the Dol Amroth outer defences here. Coastal Wardens are always firing into also firing into these Uruk Halberds. We also have these Olag Kai in the background marauding around. It looks like they're going to go around and support these Orc Archers as well. Some Morgul Chosen moving forward. Again, the Talon Knights should beat them really. We also have the Uruk Bodyguard. A combination of the Morgul Chosen and the Uruk Bodyguard might be enough to break through over here. But, I don't know, those Halberdiers are so strong. Is it going to be worth it? See, the Uruk Halberds over here, though, are proving their worth. Slowly but surely, this Dol Amroth position is buckling. And honestly, at this point, I would just push through them. Especially with the support of these Temple Inquisitors, you can just push through them relatively easily. And then move on to the Haven Guard, who have actually taken a bit of archer fire. They've lost one unit model. So the Temple Inquisitors will be able to pretty easily defeat them. Meanwhile, if we look over here, Froggy is simply sending forward his troops, setting up the towers, making sure they're alive. Although, honestly, this is where the current patch's towers reveal their true cancerous nature, because the sheer volume of arrows that they put into you means these siege towers are going to break long before they ever get to be used, which I fear does mean that they will have to either use the main gate or use their catapult to poke holes in the wall, and the catapult would have been very useful to try and dislodge Gondor's defensive position here. Yeah, I hate the towers in the current patch. There are a number of things related to arrows in the current patch which I just hate. But yeah, these Orc fellas, they're not going to do very well against Axemen of Pasanak, two very similar units, but the kicker is going to be these towers. They're just going to mow down this unit over here, and as you can see, already about a third of the tower's health is gone, which means that, yeah, this one over here in particular, there's still a lot of Goblin Band that haven't gone up the tower, So I fully expect those towers to break long before the attackers can actually make good use of them. That's not Froggy's fault, that's just really something that's wrong with the game at the moment. As we can see over here, as we fight our way through the ever-degrading frame rate, Mordor have managed to force their way through this defensive position with their mass, leading the way with the Morgul Chosen, backing them up with the Uruk bodyguard. These Talon Knights now finding themselves accosted by an elite Orc sword and shield unit and some halberdiers, and these Morgul Chosen are able to silence these javelins. And the javelins, of course, very weak in melee. They will lose the Morgul Chosen pretty handily. Over here, the Olag High were committed, but this is a very thick defensive line over here. The Trolls are not going to be able to force their way through. They're not even going to be able to do a huge amount of damage, to be honest with you. The Talon Knights will pull them down. There's some Dol Amroth archers still in reserve. Oh, hello. We see a cavalry fight. As the ram was being sent forward, it looks like the Dol Amroth cavalry made their move. The Bolgs champions and the Walk Riders seem to have taken the worst of that, to be honest with you. The Swan Knights, the standard Swan Knights have fallen quite a lot. The White Knights, however, are still looking pretty healthy, as are the Knights of the Silk. Well, the Dol Amroth cavalry has certainly come out of that fight the better. And I would definitely suggest that they really need to keep chasing down that cavalry. They need to remove it from the field, because if it's still around in the late game, that's going to be GG. And we have the Black Uruks of the Mountains also chasing after them. We can actually see them moving in through the front gate now. Again, I do think that the attackers have been a bit disjointed. They've only committed partially in many places. And this is going to be a problem here, because they've sent forward their Trolls of Gundabad, a very potent unit. But they're all on their own, really, other than this unit of Goblin Band. I would only have committed these Trolls if you were ready to mount a serious offensive on the main settlement. And you do have some Black Uruks over here, but it's not going to be enough, ultimately. And if we look over here, we can see that the towers doing their grisly work on the Warg Riders. Bouncer forces is evenly matched. The Bolgs champions are a very good cab-to-cab unit, but ultimately I don't think they have enough of them left to really make themselves win that engagement. Let's have a look here. So yeah, the attackers are getting themselves destroyed at the moment. Having said that, as we fight our way through the terrible frame rate that's out here, we have the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, very good in melee, provided they can avoid the archer fire. They're starting to rip their way through the halberdiers, and Dol Amroth's position is starting to look a little bit dicey at this point. You can see that some Númenórean Shadow Guard that's out of ammo, Orc fodder. This area over here is still relatively healthy, but they still have some Temple Inquisitors, of course. The Olag High has pulled back a little bit, but over here, so Dol Amroth is starting to take losses in places. We also have some Haven Guard over here, but ultimately I think Dol Amroth have already done their job, to be honest with you. Again, let's see. Yep, the towers are dying, and you can see this is the problem with the siege towers at the moment, and just the defensive towers in general. It's wrong. It shouldn't do this. Like the siege towers sometimes. I remember in vanilla, you know, you could send forward your towers and you could have a good fight on the walls, but honestly, this is something that I haven't actually complained about all that much, so I feel like I can complain about this rather than just complaining about the AP archers all the time. This is something which, more often than not, completely skews the balance of a defensive siege, and it's something which I really, really don't like. And you can see that there's some Guardians of Khan Doom in this tower now. There are only 14 of them remaining. What the hell happened to them? Oh, they're froggies, so they must have been in melee against Dol Amroth, but yeah. Ultimately, like, he really doesn't want to send up this unit of Guardians of Khan Doom. In fact, it might have been the AP arrows from the towers which has done all this damage to the Guardians of Khan Doom. So yeah. Oh. What's that? That might be why the frame rate's dying, because they're trying to poke holes in the walls. Over here, they have actually managed to get onto the walls without the tower being completely destroyed. And that's almost certainly because of the Witch Realm Blackguard, but this is ultimately going to be a bad thing for the Witch Realm Blackguard, because they're under huge archer fire, and also the tower arrows, as I've said before, they are AP. So I think they fire about 5 arrows in a volley, all of which are AP. Truly the most cancerous aspect of a defensive siege right now. We can see that this Dol Amroth cavalry is still there, but very much depleted. Oof, this frame rate though. Ugly, ugly frame rate. I really don't want to have to turn the speed down. I hate it when I have to do that. See these Black Uruks of the Mountains and the Black Uruk Warband. marching forth into these Gondorian Citadel archers and to the shielded Fountain Guard. They're not really going to be able to force their way through here, and at this point I would say that the advantage is very heavily in favour of the defenders. I mean, the balance of power is pretty even, but as you can see from the percentages of kills, just the general way the battle seems to be going, Dol Amroth is still relatively strong outside, Gondor is relatively untouched inside. The fact that the siege towers are crumbling, it's not looking good for the attackers, I've got to be honest. And the wall is open, but I was told this was a close battle, so perhaps the attackers can pull it back. Meanwhile, if we go out here, where the battle is at its most ugly, because of the frame rate. Oh my god, look at this. I really wish this game wasn't so horrendous on the frame rate sometimes. We have the Morgul Chosen and the Uruk Bodyguard. I'm gonna have to turn the speed down. This is unacceptable. Half speed it is. You can see the Morgul Chosen and the Uruk Bodyguard starting to run out of steam as they get into the second line of Talon Knights and Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms. This big blob of Dol Amroth forces is going to be pretty difficult to defuse, honestly. These Dol Amroth archers still have ammunition, but again, they're shooting right up into the sky, so the effectiveness of this is going to be questionable, to say the least. You can see these Númenórean Shadow Guard. The Haven Guard are basically trying to hold this line all on their own at this point. The Tirithea marksmen are all but dead. The Temple Inquisitors will, of course, beat the Haven Guard 1-1, so with backup, they will easily beat the Haven Guard. And then over here, what do we have here? We have Black Uruk Warband and more Númenórean Shadow Guard. Defeat seems certain over here. The Nimrodel Rangers, a very fashionable unit. Not the best in melee though. Similar to the Shadow Guard though, so it's a very even fight between those two there. And outside the walls, you can see that there are still some trolls. There's Black Uruk Warband trying to stop the charges of these White Knights and Swan Knights. They're obviously going to get mown down pretty easily. Now, what are they doing? Trying to force their way through the walls again. Again, the catapult maybe should have destroyed the towers, but again, I don't like how the attackers are forced to use their catapults on the towers most of the time. Because oftentimes the attackers might need the artillery to do some work on the inside of the settlement, which is what they need now. But they're not going to be allowed to do that, I don't think. Which is a real shame. It doesn't constitute aggressive fighting, it constitutes being too conservative, you know, and I don't like that. It's the same with the outside field fights with the AP archers. It means you're basically forced to be more passive, and that just makes battles artificially longer and not in a good way. So I hope that that's changed, to be honest with you. We have the Black Uruk Warband fighting with the Gondor Spearmen, but there's only one unit of these Warband, and again, they're making the mistake of sending forward one unit and without supporting them, and with the towers and the spearmen here, this Black Uruk Warband will be turned into mulch. We have these Gondorian infantry units over here. These Guardians of Khand Dûm need to sort of get out of the way of the towers, to be honest with you. Let's go back up to 1 speed. Screw it. We're just over halfway through. See, these Witchround Blackguard have taken a huge amount of arrow fire and they're still going strong, but their hit points are just being chewed up, to be honest with you. And also the Axemen of Lasarnak are AP, so they will have done more damage than maybe the Blackguard would have liked them to. We shall see, but that unit of Blackguard is just being destroyed by arrows. They're holding up for now. Oh, this frame rate. Why? Game, please. Why are you so laggy? Okay. Well, this fight is largely immoving. Immoving? This fight is largely static because of the shielded Fountain Guard. You know, they will hold all day long. Oh my god, I'm going to have to turn it down. This battle's going to take forever. I really should check how laggy these battles are before I start doing them. Also, for some reason, the units from far away look worse in this fight. I'm not sure why. Meanwhile, as we move in, the central street fights, we have this Haven Guard. Where's the Temple Inquisitors gone? Without the Temple Inquisitors here, the Haven Guard will win. Have the Temple Inquisitors been sent over here? No. Where are they? That's a very strange move. I don't know where they've gone. Catapult is still firing, trying to poke more holes in the wall. I mean, at this point, based on how just spread thin the attackers actually are, I can't imagine this fight is going to go... Oh, hello, the Templar Inquisitors are going around that way. Actually, this could be the moment of truth for the Coastal Wardens. They could get a decent javelin volley onto them. 77 Templar Inquisitors. Coastal Wardens are a relatively standard javelin units. Let's see how much damage they can do to one of the best infantry units in the game. Oh, no, they're going the other way. Very wise indeed. What is going on here? We actually have these Dol Amroth archers pulling back, I presume to try and sort of block the Templar Inquisitors from reaching the javelins, but the javelins don't do a pretty... You know, firing over the heads of your own troops with javelins at the moment is kind of awkward, simply because of their arc of fire. The axe throwers are much better at that. Let's go back to the main settlement, where it looks like more men are being filtered in to the interior of the settlement. Although this is where the frame rate is also going even more to hell, because they're bringing down the walls. You can actually see that 2 units of the Guardians of Khan Doom are over here now, which does mean that they should be able to force their way through. Guardians of Khan Doom, of course, a very elite unit. Multiple HP. Definitely one of the best... Well, based on what I've seen, one of the most effective units in the patch at the moment for its cost. They are 1,000 to buy, but they tend to pay for themselves a lot of the time. Although we do have some shielded Fountain Guard trying to force their way in here to try and stop this advance. But as we can see, more elite units coming forward. This Witch Realm Hammer Guard. The problem that Gundabad may have is that these towers are going to be doing immense damage to some of their elite units as they move forward.
The enemy force remains.
The Citadel Guard is coming in as well. So Gondor is having to bear the brunt of a lot of these elite units, which Dol Amroth did not have to deal with. This fight at the gate is going very heavily in Gondor's favour, however, these shielded Fountain Guard. They've taken a few losses, but for the most part, they have held very firm indeed. The outside fight is so ugly that I don't really want to go over there for the time being. But if we have the Guardians of Khan Doom going up against the Citadel Guard, the Citadel Guard, of course, just spearmen. So ordinarily, the Guardians of Khan Doom would win pretty comfortably, but with the support of the towers and with the fact that the unit is pretty spread out, the Guardians of Khan Doom, Citadel Guard may well have the beating of that fight. If we have a look over here, Switch Round Blackguard is being beaten by a unit of Gondor spearmen, and finally, with their hit points basically all gone, a unit of standard Gondorians is enough to bring down the best that Gundabad have to offer. Let's not have a look at that crumbling wall because it makes the frame rate awful. I wonder why that is. It's one of the most annoying things. Look at how bad the frame rate is because of that. Let's go back over to the Dol Amroth fight, despite the fact that the frame rate over here is so bad. So we have the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders and the Numenorean Shadow Guard trying to force their way through this area. There are still some Halberdiers alive, unbelievably. These Dol Amroth Archers' defeat does seem certain. And again, I think the discrepancy is simply too large, but there's still a long way in this fight to go, surprisingly. You can see that these Haven Guard, finally there goes the walls. Hopefully they'll have mercy on my frame rate and stop trying to destroy the walls now. Haven Guard victory seems certain. These Witch Realm Pikemen, they need support. You know, they need the Templar Inquisitors, to be fair. I'm not sure why they decided to bring them away over here, all on their lonesome, because they are actually now being attacked by the Javelins. So again, they're going to be taking some pretty serious, well, you know, 3 losses per volley on Templar Inquisitors is pretty severe. They're trying to force their way through. These Dol Amroth Archers, again, these Coastal Wardens, they will lose, of course. Managed to kill that troll, though. Templar Inquisitors. Losing unit models on these guys at this point is almost like a death knell for the attackers. How are things going? And over here you can see that the Assault of Mordor has basically been stonewalled. The Dol Amroth position was very strong, but again, I feel as though the attackers, they simply committed too piecemeal. You know, they went in one unit by one unit too often in this battle, and it will probably end up costing them. But we shall see. These Witch Realm Pikemen, are they going to be able to get their pikes down? and do some decent damage to these White Knights. They should be able to. Hold on a moment. I want a screenshot of this. Just in case. Regardless, let us go back up to 1 speed. What's that over there? Goblin trackers? Oh no. Down to Goblin Town. Well, there goes Imrahil actually. Just as I turn my back, the pikemen managed to skewer him. So yeah, Dol Amroth may well be alright out here. I mean, the Temple Inquisitors at this point are the biggest threat. And to be honest with you, they might be able to overwhelm them. So Dol Amroth will almost certainly have the most kills in this battle. They've cleaned up in terms of kills. The cavalry in the late game has come good. The Goblin trackers. Are they going to be firing at this cavalry? Honestly, it's kind of a waste of their ammunition. They're not really going to make much of a dent in White Knights. Yes, they are. Maybe with the hit points gone, they might get a couple of kills. One of them fell. Again, you're going to need some skirmish power in here. As you can see, this is where the attackers have basically put all their eggs at this point. All their eggs in one basket. You can see that the Witchround Blackguard, the Hammer Guard, and 2 units of Guardians of Khan Doom are here, and victory seems certain for them. This catapult, does it still have ammunition? That is the question. The towers are actually attacking the Goblin trackers, which is good for the attackers. That cavalry is going to turn around though, and is going to slam into those Goblin trackers. That is a hail of arrows, and they're not really getting any kills. Multiple HP cavalry. It's like the last samurai if the samurai were bulletproof at the end. And we can see the Goblin trackers basically being completely destroyed in a single charge. And now they're going after the catapult. So this catapult, this cavalry at this point is basically unstoppable. They're just going to be able to cycle charge whatever they please. Which again leads me to believe the defenders have basically got this in the bag. What have we got over here? Meanwhile, we do have this Witchround pikemen. They are finally starting to surround certain aspects of the outer defence of Dol Amroth. And I think it might be a little bit too late, and Dol Amroth has probably done too much damage already on the approach. But if we look over here again, they're starting to surround this defensive position as well. Temple Inquisitors' victory seems certain. These Talon Knights, but the Temple Inquisitors will take a few losses against the Talon Knights. We shall see. A fully healthy unit of Temple Inquisitors is what's going to be required to really make any moves against this castle settlement over here. Meanwhile, if we look over here again, Hammer and Anvil. Getting into the backs of these Guardians of Khan Doom and the Witchround Blackguard. They can't afford to stay too long in melee against them because the Witchround Blackguard with their AP will do a lot of damage. And so that we actually do have the Witchround Blackguard of Froggy. They managed to turn their fight around. And they are managing to surround this area over here. Can the attackers manage to pull this back? I was told it was close, so we shall see. And it is. It's closed in dramatically since we last saw. So the Gondorian defence over here was buckled very quickly by the elites of Gundabad. Will that prove to be key? Actually, these Goblin trackers managed to sort of trap the cavalry. They won't get a lot of damage done to it in melee, to be honest. But just making it more difficult for the cavalry to cycle charges is going to be the name of the game here. There goes the catapult at the hands of the towers, I assume. Let's go and have a look at what Dol Amroth's infantry is doing. Into the terrible frame rate we go. I don't know why the frame rate's so bad out here. There's a lot of tearing whenever I move the camera, which is weird. Meanwhile, these pikemen are trying to hold back the Haven Guard with very limited success. These Haven Guards still have 89 men in the unit. They've only lost 4 since the fighting started. These Witchround Scourge Raiders are needed to surround these Haven Guard at this point. You can't just leave your pikemen to do it all on their lonesome. If we look over here, these Uruk Bodyguards still managing to stand strong. And the Temple Inquisitors doing the same. And the Talon Knights and Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms finally going to fall. Which will lead to a sort of domino effect where Dol Amroth's outer position will finally be overrun. And the sort of outer settlement outside the walls will finally fall. Having said that, What do we have here? Some Witch-Realm pikemen going in through the main gate. Doesn't look like there's much of a defense over here anymore either. You can see that basically the defenders should still win because of this stack back here. There's still some archers, Citadel bodyguard, and some Fountain Guard and Guards of Hostility. Although the Sons of Argonath have been committed somewhere, interestingly enough. And actually, if we look over here, Gundabad are sort of keeping this death blob together and just sort of munching through whatever units they set their targets on, well, they set their sights on. And as you see, those Goblin trackers are getting up on the walls as well, presumably they still have a bit of ammunition. Witch-Realm Blackguard, Hammer Guard, and Guardians of Khandu forming a very effective death stack here. You can actually see over here as well the Witch-Realm pikemen coming in through the gates. Interesting. Perhaps not all is lost, although this cavalry is still running around. What do they intend to do, I wonder? There's some Goblin trackers. I don't know what the Goblin trackers are going to do if they're out of ammunition. Oh, there are Witch-Realm Blackguard over here. Froggy needs to get them the hell out of the open field. Oh dear, this could be a catastrophic loss at this point in the game, because they can't have their hit points after all the work they've done. They're going to counter-charge at this point, which is all they can do. So they had 41 at the start of that charge. Unbelievably, they've managed to completely hold their ground. That was a very... Although, actually no, those Swan Knights have warmed up. And the White Knights have warmed up as well. So the Witch-Realm Blackguard managing to... With less unit models, though, I assume that the mass is such that they can't just clatter into these units anymore. Witch-Realm Blackguard managing to cause some attritional casualties onto that cav. Meanwhile, if we look back over here, instead of going for the Haven Guard, the Witch-Realm Scourge Raiders are turning around, focusing their attention on the main settlement. Interesting move. Although, to be fair, the Haven Guard are already being surrounded by Shadow Guard and by Temple Inquisitors, although defeat is a distinct possibility for the Temple Inquisitors, because the Haven Guard, there are still 83 of them remaining. Whereas the Uruk Bodyguard might be required to really hammer this one home. Although defeat is now almost, it's even, but I would still commit the Uruk Bodyguard to make sure these guys die, and to make sure that some Temple Inquisitors survive for the final assault on Gondor's position in the castle. Again, those Witch-Realm Blackguard have lost a few more unit models, but so too have the Cav. So the Cav is basically diffused at this point. Goblin trackers, which are shaken and exhausted. Witch-Realm Scourge Raiders, so it does actually look like with the Witch-Realm Blackguard, they're sort of taking up position and getting ready for a final assault. The attackers, actually, they're still behind. Still 9% behind. This is a lot of men that Escal Nordia still has remaining. There's pikes, there's halberds, but again, a lot of this is archers. Look, 3 units of Gondor archers. And I think 2 units of Citadel bodyguard. It's a lot of pole arms. Not the sort of thing that gets their killing done quickly. Unbelievably, the attackers might pull this around. And I think that might be due to this sort of conservative play back here in the town centre. If these units have been committed forward to help isolate those initial assaults from the Gundabad armies, the death stack would not have formed. And amusingly, the Goblin trackers have got a very nice field of fire onto these guys. This is something that was very common on this map, of course, in the castle sieges. Getting onto this wall meant you had a perfect shot into the town centre. And of course they are going after the Fountain Guard. Fountain Guard do have HP, so they will stand up pretty well to missile fire, honestly. But just getting a few kills might be what it takes, because of course the Fountain Guard are armour piercing. This cavalry over here is just not able to make a dent in these Witch-Realm Blackguard, despite all the punishment they've taken. So now, this outer fight, suddenly the Haven Guard need to cause a lot of damage over here, but again, the Uruk Bodyguard was sent over here, which means the Haven Guard are going to get overwhelmed. Can the attackers do it, I wonder? Or have they taken too much damage? Will the freshness of that Gondorian force in the town centre be enough to pull this one out? We shall see. It's getting close, and the Temple Inquisitors versus the Haven Guard, the clash of the Titans. Although, as I've said before, the Temple Inquisitors do have the beating of the Haven Guard. But it is still 2 of the most elite units in the game going toe-to-toe. And another Haven Guard falls. So yeah. Oh, hello. Well, that's the Mordor General, dead at the hands of the Haven Guard. So they're not going quietly into that good night. We shall see what happens in the castle. What have we got here? Some Witch Realm Hammer Guard. So there's 65 Witch Realm Hammer Guard. There's some glitchy corpses that you can see flashing. 15 Guardians of Khan Doom. 118 Witch Realm Blackguard. 124 Guardians of Khan Doom. Some Witch Realm Pikemen. Some Scourge Raiders. What happened to Froggy's Blackguard? There's still 35 of them remaining. There's a lot of Goblin Trackers. These Gondor Archers, I think, are out of ammunition and just providing a nice...
We're under attack!
This would be a nice screenshot whenever they start the primary assault. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, they do have their Sons of Argonath. That might be the kicker. Because they're fully fresh. Didn't notice them there. It's going to be close. What have we got here? The percentages are still relatively even, but again, that's mainly because the attackers are waiting, I think, before these guys manage to finish off these Haven Guard. Their backs are to the wall. I'll probably make a little cut after the Haven Guard are dead. Because we are now well within the final 10,000 frames, so the final assault will be happening imminently. I like this scenario though, I like how well it's laid out. The frame rate's been god-awful for some of it, but still, I like the way there's like a little outer settlement that you have to kind of deal with first, while the big settlement looms in the distance and you'll be receiving archer fire from it. It's good. I think the attackers would definitely have this in the bag if they attacked in bigger groups earlier on in the battle, seeing as how close it is now. Meanwhile, if we look over here, we can see that a rear charge is going to happen. There's one White Knight, although there are pikes in this blob, so this cavalry charge is likely not going to have too much of an effect. Here he goes. And there he goes. Completely destroyed very quickly. These Swan Knights also coming in, lances down. And again, the presence of the pikes just means these guys are going to get chewed up. Ruined. What have we here? Looks like the Gondor Archers are actually coming out. There's the two Guardians of Khan Doom mounting a solo assault. Froggy's very bloodied Witch Realm Blackguards. They look red from a distance because of how much battle they've seen. Guardians of Khan Doom. Again, this is going to be interesting. Okay. So I think that the attackers will be sort of regrouping their forces. Although actually no, the Witch Realm Blackguard are coming in. And the Witch Realm Blackguard catching these Gondor Archers out. Getting just a few more kills. They do need to be careful not to charge into the pikemen. But again, just getting a few more kills before the main event starts. That could be key. I've seen battles come down to a handful of troops before. That is a pretty lethal pike line. I'm actually not going to make a cut, I don't think. I'm just going to speed it up to the lovely frame rate, destroying 6 times 6 speed. Yeah, this has been an interesting fight indeed. A long one as well for a 3v2. Wonder how long it's been. Probably around an hour. I don't know. Those Sons of Argonath might be clutch. Sons of Argonath and Citadel Bodyguard. The Sons of Argonath will need to take on a unit of Witch Realm Blackguard and win. So if we assume that that happens, we have to assume that the rest of the Gondor line needs to hold off all of what remains. And here we go. The final assault. The pikemen holding their ground. Actually, is it the final assault? The Gondorian banners waving in the breeze. I mean, honestly, they may as well begin their final assault. They won't be able to bring to bear all of their units at once anyway. The Goblin Trackers. Going to be adding more meat for the meat grinder. Guards of Osgiliath are a good pike unit though. Provided they're backed up, they will hold. What are they doing? I really want a nice screenshot from this, if you couldn't tell. You can see the Witch Round Blackguard in the distance over there. Probably not a good idea to go up against the Fountain Guard with your most elite units. Honestly, I would just commit my Goblin Trackers over there to occupy them and then try and force my way through the Guards of Osgiliath. More difficult to do so than with the Dol Amroth Pikemen. But even so. Some Hammer Guard in the distance over there, and here we go. There we go. Now then, the line battle begins. And this is going to be it. This is for all the marbles. So again, 8% of the attackers remaining, 17% of the defenders remaining, but of course, in the late game, that will close quite a bit. So we've got some Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, we've got a very healthy unit of Witch Realm Blackguard, to be fair. Gondor Archer's defeat is a distinct possibility over here for the Fountain Guard. They need support, and the Citadel Bodyguard will provide it. Wherever this big unit of Witch Realm Blackguard commits itself, that's where the Sons of Argonath need to go, because they're the only ones with a hope of beating them in melee. Victory is a distinct possibility for the Guards of Osgiliath, but they do need to be careful that they don't just get forced like this by the Witch Realm Blackguard. How will this turn out? We're at the sharp end of the battle now. Everything is here. Except for that one green unit over there. What is that? It's one Numenorian Shadow Guard. Could he be the hero? Probably not. But even so, these Sons of Argonath are committing themselves now. The balance of forces is evenly matched. Again, a lot of the problem that Gondor will have here is that a lot of their forces are made up of Gondor archers in melee, and they don't stand a chance against elite Gundabad forces, so they're really relying on their polearms. And if we look there, there's another unit of Witch Realm Pikemen coming in, and Temple Inquisitors. Yeah, I think the attackers have probably got this, to be fair. The Gondorians, after all those kills that Dol Amroth got, the Gondorians won't be able to see them over the line. I don't think, anyway. The Sons of Argonath and the Citadel Bodyguard will have to do some really heavy lifting. Goblin Trackers are exhausted. Let's get some close-ups of this fight here. So the Guards of Osgiliath.
If we continue like this, we will smash the enemy.
Yeah, I agree. I think the attackers have got this. The Witch Realm Blackguard scything their way through the pikemen and through the Gondor archers. They don't stand a chance in melee against these guys. The Scourge Raiders able to get into melee, dish out that AP damage. The Sons of Argonath looking very cool, but ultimately they're not going to be able to turn this battle around, I don't think. And then over here we can see the Witch Realm Hammer Guard leading the way, smashing their way through the spears, backed up by the Guardians of Khan Dûn with their shields.
Only half the enemy force remains.
And the Temple Inquisitors are taunting, doing their chanting. You can see where the line is starting to buckle a little bit for the defenders in the middle, where the Sons of Argonath are. It's holding more strongly. But elsewhere, the elites of the orcs are starting to force their way forward. Yeah, I think Gondor were just a little bit too cautious. They'd have just been a little bit more aggressive. I assumed that the rules were they couldn't charge out the settlement, but even so, they could. I think they could have used these reserve units sooner and really put Gundabad to the sword. But ultimately, they sat back, and that will probably end up costing them this fight. Because yet, for the first time in this fight, we're within, well, other than the beginning, of course, we're starting to get back to within even percentages, and that's basically. The bell tolls for the defenders. Good scenario though, I like it. I wonder what the next one will be like. Frog, you made that one. It's called The Road to the Shrine. So we shall see. Probably not a siege in the same way that this one was. Which I haven't got. Balance of forces is evenly matched there now. So the Citadel Bodyguard trying their best, but ultimately it's going to be the Blackguard, which are just liberally placed throughout the army, which is going to do the damage. And honestly, I think we can turn it up to ×2 speed at least. Yes, I like the fact that more people are making maps and it's not just down to Horton, WK and Sin. It means we'll be able to get more scenarios more often. Keeps the game fresh. And it allows people to be creative, of course. And that's why most of the time when people make like their own scenario, I will prioritise that to try and show it, because I do want to show off what people make, because I think that it deserves to be seen. That was my whole reason for starting to do continue doing the Reforged stuff in the first place. I felt that the devs deserved their recognition for it, and if I can help in any small way with that, then that's good. It's the same story with the bits and pieces that people make for it. I think that the community deserves to know about these things, and they should play them, because it's good. Much better than a flat field battle with nothing on it. I spent my fair share of time on Grassy Plain, but it's not exactly the most interesting place to be. Here we can see the Temple Inquisitors. The surround has happened. Sons of Argonath, Citadel Bodyguard, the final stand. So yeah, I thought for the life of me the defenders were going to win that. I felt like the attackers had made just one too many mistakes in committing their forces too thinly. But ultimately I think that Gondor, not being aggressive, again the defenders can afford less mistakes than the attackers, and I think that here that one mistake is what has cost them this, despite the attackers, that piecemeal advance wasn't really punished as much as it could have been. Dol Amroth must have got the most kills though. All of those fodder units they simply slaughtered and brushed aside. But here we come towards the end of the fight. Good to see the castle settlement used as well. Good old medieval too. Warts and all of its bugs as well. It still remains probably the community's favourite Total War game. I think the Citadel Bodyguard, they're finally going to start to crumble. The Witch Realm Blackguard proving their might once more. And there goes the Gondorian General. RIP. And here is the end of the fight, so the attackers win. Victory for the Orcs once more. And of course, the links to both the Discords and to the ModDB will be in the description below. I think by the time this comes out, the Mod of the Year 2017 vote will have been concluded. So, it depends, I'll check. If it isn't, then that will also be in the description below. But yeah, look at the 7,000 kills for Dol Amroth and 4,000 for Gondor. You can't say they dragged their heels any. Again, Witch Realm Black, 467 kills on Goddess Neemhane's Witch Realm Blackguard, and the Guardians of Kharndoom doing very well. His standard units, of course, got utterly slaughtered. Actually, is that? Actually, both units of Witch Realm Blackguard got exactly the same amount of kills. How about that? 467. So both units were both Gundabad armies. Weirdly enough, Mordor is not on this list, apparently. So yeah, that was a scenario. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for what is next, and that will be the scenario that Froggy has made. So yeah, I hope to see you there.